than it does on this thing. And I've got an interesting backlight here. Does that get worse every time? I didn't remember it being that bright. Maybe it's because I'm wearing black and that makes that bright. I don't know. But I did remember not to wear white, so we're not completely blown out. Maybe it's the changing seasons. I'll have to rotate myself somewhere else. Anyway, doing like a messy Bridget Bardot kind of thing today. Looks a little lopsided? I don't know. Anyway, here we are. It is starting to get chilly outside. I don't think we'll get rained out today, but it has been pretty dark. And my hands are cold. I don't think I can smoke in gloves. That'd probably be very awkward. But here we are, and ready to read chapter 16. We're getting there. She's heading back to Europe. Let's see. I have everything here. Got these things over here. What's new out there? What's new here? Why don't I bookmark things? I didn't bookmark. 14. Is that it? Nope, that's 17. Go back a little bit. I uploaded another episode to my diary reading thing on the lostdiaryproject.com. And I'm trying to get the next two out as quickly as I can because I am ready to move on to the next diary. I'm kind of transcribing that so I can read it better and doing some research on it. I got interviewed by this newspaper in Idaho because, well, at first I thought the girl was in Idaho, but now I think she's in Oregon, and her cousin who died that year was in Idaho. I'm trying to figure out who this girl is. If anyone out there is into solving mysteries and likes genealogy, I did sign up for, thanks, and I feel warm with a nice, well, part of me warm, my neck is warm. Anyone into genealogy, I did join Ancestry.com, but I'm having difficulty because it seems like there are like multiple records for people sometimes and they're not very complete. So I'm trying to figure out how to work that site and build my own family tree. But if anyone's into that and might want to help, the diary I have is from 1946. Yeah, all good things must end. And then I'll start my acting class soon, so I need time for that and whatnot. I need to sit down and prioritize things. But I think I got a lot of good practice out of this reading and speaking or speaking in her. Sorry, just someone sent me a text. Yeah, with her accent and the smoking, and I hope I've improved. So yeah, it's been helpful. But anyway, Ancestry.com. If anyone is into that sort of thing, what I know so far is probably Instagram. Someone asked how to private message me. Instagram, I guess, since YouTube doesn't do that anymore. But the girl lives in Oregon. She's 16, born in 1930, I think. She's got a sister named Yvonne, and her cousin who passed away that year was Homer Renfro. Can't remember his birthday or anything, but he died in Idaho. So I'm trying to figure out this girl's name, but you know, of all Homer's aunts and uncles, none of them, some of them have children listed, but none of them have her or Yvonne listed, so I'm stumped. So working on that. Anyway, let's get started on chapter 16 today because I am chilly. My fingers are cold, so I don't want to drag it out too much. All right, let's see. Are we good? Come closer. And then I'll light one in a page or two. The mother house was the only place in Belgium that the Congo had not dwarfed. Its immense grey masonry and rarefied impersonalness sent a little chill through her when she first had entered it to put on her postulant cape. The moment she crossed the threshold, a playback of her religious life began. The nun in the porter's cubbyhole stepped forward and gave her the delicate embrace reserved for returning missionaries. Once she had her turn in the porter's booth, and, like the young sister who received her, she had dropped her disciplined eyes immediately from the tanned face and gaunt, expectant look of the homecomer, and had made no comment on the worn suitcase handed over at the door, which now in her case contained something obviously weightier than the rule allowed, a Bakongo statue which Sister Eudoxie would automatically confiscate. Sister Luke still stood in the foyer to get used to the strangeness of having no one look at her. She recalled that the first act of a returning nun was to visit the chapel. As the bells of Vespers tolled, she slipped like a black ghost into the files of her sister's chapel bound. The nun pacing beside her resembled one of the Irish girls of her novitiate days, now so perfectly molded that one would have to see the blue-eyed smile to make sure of the identity. But her companion kept her eyes bent down and her thoughts presumably on God, and so it was with every other nun whom Sister Luke glanced at, longing for just one pair of eyes to lift in a flash of recognition. Then, as always, following the chill came the beauty. When the choirs began the Gregorian chant, she had her welcome home. After the 15-voiced choir of the Congo community, the 100 sopranos of the mother house nearly swept her off her feet. As long as there is this each day in this house, she thought, the choirs began the Magnificat. She shut her eyes and listened to their virgin voices singing the Virgin's song. When she opened them, she was looking far ahead. She saw the covey of short-caped postulants down in front, who were not yet permitted to sing with their sisters, nor yet sure custodians of their wandering eyes, as the hushed antiphon, a great mystery of inheritance, told of secrets their covert glances sought to discover in the statuesque section of the living rules. Sister Luke looked down at her own black scapular, the vestment of the living rule. Was she one? God alone could say. The devotion ended, she went to report to the Superior General. She sat on a sort of mourner's bench in the anteroom of the Reverend Mother Emmanuel's office, in a row of nuns as secret as tombs, awaiting their turns for interview. Some nuns read the little office, some told their rosaries, and one, lean and brown like Sister Luke and obviously a recent arrival from a bright hot outpost of the congregation, stared at the austere furnishings of their fountainhead, bare walls, rugless floor, 2 Gothic oak chairs carved with the coat of arms of the order, and an antique desk holding a standing crucifix and a small calendar which named the martyr of the day, the date, and the year. Let's do the tobacco mix. A family friend of their families came over the other day, and she's a smoker, and she was very curious about this mix. She's like, oh, can you make me some? Can I have some? I want to try it. So I made her a couple, and we'll see what she thinks. I'm going to start manufacturing herbal cigarettes. Thank you. Trying to keep warm. I actually don't have that many sweaters. Maybe I'll start wearing my Outlander outfit. That's nice and cozy, warm and woolly. Although I wouldn't want to drop any ashes on it. I would be very mad at myself. Yeah. Sister Luke read the calendar. March 15th, 1939. On the quay in Antwerp that morning, while she was handing over to the Engelbert family her patient, who appeared more normal than the nervous psychiatrist they had brought with them to the pier, she had heard newsboys crying headlines about German troops occupying Czech Bohemia. In the black convent limousine which had swept her over the poplar-lined highways to Brussels, she had recalled the war talk among passengers on the ship. What would it be like to be in a convent if war came, she had wondered. There was something Sister Eucharistia had said about it, but the words eluded her memory. A nun emerged from the Superior General's office, and another went in. Sister Luke moved up one place on the bench. This is how it will be to be in a convent if war comes, she told herself. Exactly like this, with nothing changed. Each one of us secretly struggling with a problem of nature or of the soul, waiting to go in under the X-ray eyes of the Reverend Mother Emmanuel, which will pierce through to the places of inner conflict where there never has been any truce, not since Christ's time began on earth. Never a truce, she whispered as she moved up another place. She made no preparation for her talk with the Superior General. Instead, she went in spirit out through the closed door to the wide corridor where white-clad novices, duty-bound past the sanctum sanctorum, were sliding their eyes sideways to look at the living rules who came out smiling through tears because they had just been promoted or demoted, praised or reproved. Tap, tap, tap. Burning funny today, I don't know. For a while she dwelt with the novices tiptoeing past. Then her turn came. The Reverend Mother Emmanuel stood up as she entered the office, a salute of special respect for the missionary sisters, whom she was suspected of treasuring above all others, since, having been one herself, she knew their special struggles. Sister Luke looked straight into her glowing eyes as she knelt. The Superior General stepped forward, laid both hands upon her shoulders, leaned down and embraced her cheek to cheek with a warmth that gave the impression she was being held against an understanding heart. Then she returned to her high-backed chair. The magnetic pull of the dark eyes held her own so firmly that Sister Luke did not at once see Emile's ebony statue of the Bakongo kneeling woman on the bookshelf behind the desk. It was set sideways to reveal the posture of prayer. She waited for the voice which 12 years ago had said, "It is life against nature," and 7 years ago, "Remember, you are only an instrument." The Reverend Mother Emmanuel smiled. "Did you have a good trip back, my child?" "A beautiful passage, Reverend Mother. We are treated like queens when we travel." Sister Luke commanded herself not to look again at the statue. "And how is your physical health?" "Wonderful, Reverend Mother," she said, "and my spiritual health is likewise." What is... That is fine, Sister Luke. Nevertheless, your body now undoubtedly needs some repairs. You must not forget that you have been doing overtime for many years. Sister Luke saw the minutiae of a superior's letters on the states of her nuns shining like so many shapely crystals. And the dark eyes gazing at her, and thought, "You had dysentery once, nearly fatal, then tuberculosis, from which, with God's help, you pulled yourself. You used your own judgment perhaps too often outside your professional field, where alone a nun may use personal judgment. And there were some friendships on the human plane which you might have striven a little more to supernaturalize, but on the other hand..." "So what do you think?" said the Superior General. "The routine is to keep our missionaries here for at least a month, to do nothing but rest and refresh the soul in this peaceful atmosphere. Receive family and friends at all hours, save those when the community does its spiritual exercises. My special thought for you would be that you get up only at 6 each day, to follow the devotions not from the pews but from the chairs." She paused, smiled. "From the chairs," she repeated, "not because you are too old or ill to stand for the services, but because I would like you to think of yourself for a while as a lamb at the feet of the Master. You were a Martha for a long time, sister. Now try to be a Mary." "I shall try, Reverend Mother." Her upward glance caught the ebony statue on the shelf and the face of chiseled ivory bent towards her, and she held them together for a moment in her mind. She could see no difference in the God who inspired both. "You may chafe at first with no work to do and no errant souls in this community to bring back to the faith." The Reverend Mother's eyes sparkled. "It is amazing to everyone, sister, how many converts you made in the colony. You must have been beloved by God and a strong intermediary between him and the souls you encountered. I had many letters from the families of colonials, from missionary fathers, all attesting to your good work. You were liked and respected by everyone out there." She turned her head slightly toward the shelf where the statue was. "Including your black boys, I see." Ooh, getting close. Now that it had been mentioned, she could look directly at Emile's ebony. Her fingers knew every curve of the smooth black wood. Her eyes caressed it for a moment. Then she looked back at the Gothic matriarch, who alone had the power to send her back to the Congo. Oh, here we go. Yikes, why am I getting this message? Another controlled demolition by none other than George Bush. Hello? What are we talking about? Is he doing something? It is a beautiful gift, sister, said the Reverend Mother in her most captivating tone, and how beautifully it symbolizes the whole of that dark continent. Do you wish me to give it to your father? Sister Luke heard the veiled yearning in the question. The Superior General was really saying, for your soul's sake, I should dearly love you to be able to give this up. Quite totally, not even retaining the satisfaction of knowing that it remains in your family. That's getting hot. Your father, she said almost coaxingly, would consider it a handsome adornment for his desk, don't you think? Sister Luke smiled at her and accepted her challenge. I should prefer, Reverend Mother, that it be kept in the congregation to which it really belongs. When I leave here, it would make me happy to think that something for me remains in the Mother House Museum. You are generous, sister, said the Reverend Mother Emmanuel. Sister Luke knew she would never have referred to the statue had she not had a special reason. She would have left it sitting there on the shelf where from time to time reposed the teak elephants removed from suitcases from Ceylon, the multiple-armed gods from India, the ivory Buddhas from China, sitting there unremarked and anonymous, since never was the nun named from whose suitcase the souvenirs were taken, and seldom were they referred to when the missionary knelt in that office, trying not to look at the object she loved and, bravely hopeful, had brought with her into this house of total abnegation. It struck her that perhaps her deep attachment for the Congo was more visible than she had supposed. This will enhance our Bantu collection, the Reverend Mother went on. Perhaps, sister, after you're well rested, I may ask you in the recreation to tell your sisters the news of their Congo colleagues. They are always eager for first-hand news. Sister Luke nodded obediently, but she wondered if she could talk about the Congo calmly, especially now that it had been made quite clear she was to remain in Belgium longer than Mother Mathilde had suggested. As she left the office, she felt the magnetic eyes following her to the door. The Reverend Mother Emmanuel had invited her to come back any time she wished for another heart-to-heart talk. She would go back, she told herself, as she shut the door quietly behind her. She would go back because she was sure now that she would never weaken to the point of asking about her return to the Congo. Her first talk had proven that she had the strength not to blurt out the question closest to her heart. It had leapt from her eyes, quite possibly, but she had been able to hold her tongue. We will do one of my mixes. I'm lighting them funny today. Oh, maybe it's the wind. Her father was the first visitor. You are thin, ma petite, he said, exactly as he had the first time he had seen her clad in the transforming habit. He embraced her, then stood her off from him, and looked at her with combative lights in his blue eyes. I don't believe, of course, all that rubbish about your having had TB in the Congo. It is inadmissible that anyone survive the malady in the tropics. The reunion was easy then. They launched at once into one of their old professional discussions. She matched his objections point by point, but never suggested that he look at her x-rays, knowing how proudly he spurned such mechanical aid for what his own ears, pinned back with a stethoscope, would have told him more convincingly. She described Dr. Fucinati's original cure, and saw the sallow face of Beelzebub as she talked, and wondered how he would make out with the sister who replaced her. She saw the golden eyes of Felix peering up from the cradle of her arms, as she had paced the tree-top room, letting the little monkey look aloft for crickets in the thatch while she recited the offices happily. With memories pulling and twisting, she found she could relate no more of the Congo than the exact number and frequency of the gold dust injections, the the precise regime of sleeping and overfeeding, her father appeared to take for granted that nothing more important than her phenomenal triumph over tuberculosis had happened to her in the Congo. "Of course, they'll send you back after a little change of climate furlough," he said. "Perhaps," she said, "but if there should be war—" Then she remembered what Sister Eucharistia had said about the mission in wartime. Every word flashed clear in her memory. In 1418 we were completely cut off from the mother house and the homeland. Our colonial troops fought the Germans out here. That's how, when the peace was signed, we were given the protectorate of Rwanda, Urundi. But more important to us, of course, was the first letter from our beloved Mother General after 4 long years of silence. And then the sisters starting to come out again to the colony. "Are you ill, Gabby?" her father asked. "Your pupils dilated." "No, no," she forced a smile. "I heard myself saying war conversationally. Then I began to think what it would mean." "There'll be no war," said her father. "Personally, I don't believe that psychopath in Germany will make another move." He stroked his beard as he gave her some medical facts about Hitler to explain the current boasting coming out of Germany. "Of course," he added honestly, "all this may be wishful thinking. Antoine is in the reserve now, but he wouldn't wait to be called up. The 2 younger are of military age, of course." Les deux gosses! They were lads in knickerbockers when she saw them last. In the timeless years of the convent, they had never grown up in her mind. She stared at her father and shivered. "I'd take a little caffeine until you acclimatize to our March winds," he said gently. When her father was gone, she wanted to continue sitting in the parlor all alone to think. But she could feel the community around her, immense and watchful. It seemed to be waiting for her return to it, with its 200 pairs of eyes cast down yet seeing all. She shivered again as she opened the door to the cloister. "I'll get used to it," she told herself, but she was not sure if she referred to the weather or to the sight of so many nuns under one roof. She took a caffeine capsule from her pocket and slipped it into her mouth as she made her way through the peopled thoroughfares of the mother house to the nuns' dormitory. It was time for the half-hour rest she had promised Reverend Mother Emmanuel she would take for the first week. The caffeine in capsule did not take effect as promptly as the hypos she had been given on the ship. She lay on her straw mattress that rustled as she shook, and she remembered Mother Mathilde saying, "Be sure you are as generous to yourself with caffeine as you are with me." I shivered like a dog all the while in Belgium. Presently, she felt the action of the caffeine on her heart, which began to beat rapidly and strong. Then the action moved to her brain, stimulating every part of it. She lay wide awake, alert as an owl in the gloom. She recited word-for-word lines from her Materia Medica Pharmacology that she had not thought of in years. As a result of caffeine, the patient's mental activities, especially reasoning and memory, are increased. Fatigue lessens. The imagination is more active. This effect is of short duration. She shut her eyes for the duration. Presently she was riding in the convent Ford, clinging to her veil with one hand and her sack of instruments with the other. Emile was in front with the driver, turned sideways so he could speak of medical matters to impress Kalulu. They rode across town and set up for an operation in the native hospital. "Oh, you are not my cat." "Hey, welcome. Hey." It's a strange gray cat. It's a little creepy, this cat. It's got this weird little head. And it's really quiet. My cat tried to make friends with it. They rode across town and set up for an operation in the native hospital. Dr. Fortunati came into the small bare operating room on the instant they were ready for him. He ignored the body on the table and the instrument trays and looked at her. "I've got your successor trained up to instrument nurse," he said, "but that's as far as she'll go. She'll never replace you. She has no fight in her. She won't argue back when I'm wrong." His face was a lacquered lantern swinging in a boundless space of sun and winds. That girl was born to be a nun, something you could never be in 1,000 years, Reverend Sister, an overgrown child. Emile slipped a mask over the grinning yellow lantern. The eyes above the patch of gauze became human. "Ready," they said, while the black eyebrows came together in a quizzical peak. Then she slapped the first instrument into his gloved hand. "You're not in love with him?" Mother Mathilde asked. That was in her second Congo year, just after Madame Goussin had been delivered of her 5th daughter, and Beelzebub had wanted to tie off her tubes, pretending she was too old for further childbearing. In the fiercest dispute they had ever had together, she had prevented him. Mother Mathilde had seen her when she came from surgery, flushed with shame for having called a doctor a coward because he could not face a son-hungry father for a 5th time and tell him that God's will had been otherwise. Sister Luke opened her eyes. The grey curtain of a convent cell in Brussels swayed slightly in the draught. The curtain turned into Spanish moss as she stared at it, and she was on the river again with Mother Mathilde, who continued questioning her in Flemish, so the paddle boys would not understand. "Because if you are in love and have not told me, my child, it would break my heart." "Ah, no, ma mère." The pirogue rolled with a sudden movement of dismay as she realized that her superior had waited a whole week before asking. A week of worry and praying, and doubtless asking herself if she had lost a soul through her own inattention. "Of course I've not fallen in love. But isn't it wonderful," she thought, "how frankly and freely we always talk together? I only cherish him, ma mère, deeply for his skill and selflessness when there's a life to be saved. I always think he is very close to God in those unearthly hours when he operates." The prow of the pirogue curved up from the water, and the forward seat was the pedestal on which Mother Mathilde stood like a figurehead. "I'm so glad you told me, sister," she said simply. After a while the images faded. Sister Luke could look at the cell curtain and see nothing more than grey wool neatly darned in places. Her chill had subsided, but there was a pain in her heart that had nothing to do with the stimulant she had taken. On the way to Vespers she threw the remaining caffeine capsules into one of the waste baskets that stood along the corridor. She had it rolled up discreetly in a scrap of paper, such as nuns always stoop to pick up on their way to and fro through their immaculate house. She knelt in her pew and folded her hands. "Help me to detach from these memories," she said to the Lord. "I have come halfway to help you by throwing out the caffeine which sharpens them and choosing to shiver instead. Oh God, how can I be a Mary if I can't get the Congo out of my blood? Help me to be like her. Help me to say, 'Thy will,' with her perfect grace." She turned the pages of her little office as she prayed, and moved her lips as if chanting the Psalms with her sisters. "It's still strange, blessed Lord, not to hear crickets shrilling when we chant this office. In the Congo, Vespers was always your magic hour. It was late afternoon, and your creatures in the bush were already stretching and stirring. You guys deal with that. Sharpening beaks and claws for the night prowls. When we came to the Ave Maris Stella, the ocean of night was just below the horizon." We'll do a real one now. The memories persisted despite her prayers. One day, when her unaccustomed leisure weighed too heavily, she asked and received permission to visit the cancer ward of the Mother House Hospital. The old incurables had not known that she was the sister recently returned from the Congo. They knew only with a strange recognition born out of their years of suffering that one of those saintly missionaries must just have returned, for there had appeared again on the dressing carts the bandages they cherished above all others. The last tattered shreds of the tropical habits she had brought home in her tin trunk lay upon their frightful wounds. Sister Eudoxie had sorted the worn habits for continuing use. The parts where threads were still held together had been cut into diapers for the maternity wards. The final threadbare portions, usually from the darn skirt fronts where praying knees had pressed, had been folded for one last usage before burning into the soft dressings which the cancer patients believed brought special alleviation. The sight of their hands patting the folds of work-worn cotton gave her an emotion. There's a whole lot more than years of prayer folded between those frayed threads she wanted to tell them. There's struggle and heartache too. There's a sanctification of pain as well as the sanctification you imagine. They whimper when we remove those dressings for burning, the accompanied nun whispered. Isn't it strange how they know what you missionaries have gone through? There was no place in the mother house where Sister Luke could escape the playback of memory. It gave her the disturbing feeling that she was no longer a current member of the community, but rather a ghostly spectator, free to come and go as she wished, with too much time on her hands. Now and again she heard Dr. Fortunati saying, "Suppose you are detained there indefinitely, will the strength be enough then?" And she answered the sarcastic voice even more explicitly than she had done when his scalpel eyes were upon her. "There's absolutely no doubt of it, Doctor. This seeming restlessness is only because I am unemployed. I need to get back to work, that's all." She haunted the bulletin board that listed transfers and reassignments. Toward the end of her first month in the mother house, Tante Colette visited her, bringing the brothers. They talked about war, which seemed to have come closer since her father's visit. "I simply can't believe it," Sister Luke said. "That's understandable in a place like this," Tante Colette replied tartly. "No radios, no newspapers, no talk. But on the outside, Gabby, it's just like in 1418. You'd be surprised how many people already have visas for Spain tucked away in their passports." Tante Colette smiled wryly. "The same families that deserted in the last war. And for us who stay, it will be the same thing all over again?" "Probably," said her aunt. "A brief fight, then occupation." Antoine, tall and handsome, disputed her. She regarded him sadly while he described the great fortifications. "Belgium could never possibly be overrun a second time," he said proudly. Sister Luke listened to the arguments flying back and forth between her aunt and her oldest brother. If there really is to be war, she thought, then there will be suffering right here and a need for nurses. Maybe that's why God gives no sign that I'll be sent back to the Congo, but only the strength to hold my tongue and not ask. "Maybe you think it's a game, Antoine," Tante Colette cried. "Tin soldiers and toy forts. You don't know. You were only an infant when we suffered the last occupation, with Boche billeted in the house and your father hiding out with the price on his head for spying against them. Don't stare at me, ask him." Tante Colette blew her nose and wiped away her tears. "That's why he'd have to flee the country the instant those Germans set foot again on our soil." "He never told me that when he was here," Sister Luke said wonderingly. "He never tells anyone," said her aunt with great pride, with angry pride. Squirrel friend? Or bird? Bird. The war talk, however unbelievable, pushed the Congo back a little in Sister Luke's mind and lessened her nagging longing to get back quickly. The realization that she would no longer have that burning wish leaping from her eyes and trembling unspoken on the tip of her tongue gave her the courage to go to the Reverend Mother Emmanuel. For weeks she had weighed the great perfection of sitting quietly and waiting for the nod to be given against what she knew would be a show of desire for change or restlessness or spiritual malaise. "I simply wish to go back to work again, Reverend Mother," she said. "Anywhere," she added emphatically. "You suspected that the leisure might chafe a bit, and it does. I don't make a very good Mary. My hands get restless." She smiled pleadingly. "Could you find something for them to do?" The Reverend Mother showed no surprise. In her long tenure of office as Superior General of the Order that had pray and work for its motto, she had seldom known a missionary to be able to sit out the rest she had earned. "Are you sure you are ready so soon, my child? After such a tour of duty in the tropics, you are entitled to a longer repose." "I've gained 2 kilos in the past month, Reverend Mother. I've made up the lost sleep of years. I've examined and re-examined my life, and with the help of God's grace, have put my spiritual house in order. But now these hands." She let her longing show frankly in her eyes. "What sort of nursing had you in mind, sister?" "I had thought of TB nursing, Reverend Mother. Having had the malady, I've a resistance established. I've always had a special sympathy for TBs. Their eternal hope and courage, they always seem so close to God." The Superior General consulted her notebook. "It so happens," she said reluctantly, "that we do have a most important post vacant now. It is extremely difficult work. I would want the opinion of our doctor before assigning you. She looked up from her notebook. "It's for an assistant in pulmonary surgery in our hospital on the Holland border." Pulmonary surgery would have been my choice had I dreamed there was a vacancy. It is the most exacting nursing, Reverend Mother. And the hardest. A quick smile played over the Superior General's face. Then she said in a thoughtful voice, "But there is another reason why I hesitate. The Superior there, Mother Didymer, was a born missionary sister, but we could never spare her administrative talent so sorely needed there. She had to give up her dream of missions. She surmounted this disappointment bravely, but each time I send her a missionary, I'm sure it revives those old longings and gives her pain. When she will see your tanned face," the Reverend Mother's powerful eyes shot the warning, "you will have to have a great spirit of faith if I send you there, my child." "With God's graces you can count on me, Reverend Mother," said Sister Luke in the most positive voice she could summon from her constricted throat. A thwarted missionary, she thought. I know something about that secret pain. Very well then, sister, we shall see. The Reverend Mother Emmanuel lifted her hand for the benediction. We shall see, we shall see. Behind the 3 words lay a world of reasoning far more delicate and exact than a doctor's reading of a few health charts. Sister Luke knew that the state of her soul would be weighed in the sensitive balances of the Superior General's mind, that it would be on the basis of her findings mainly, that she would be released from the mother house for work again, released, moreover, to a superior who might find her presence painful. She spent most of the next days in the chapel. She had good sturdy pads of callus on both knees from 12 years of praying, and metatarsals steel strong from bracing against stone floors. She knelt without shift or sway hours on end, firm in the conviction that her prayers would be answered. 5 days after her interview with the Superior General, she saw her name on the bulletin board posted for transfer to the hospital on the Holland border. Next to the notice was a current events clipping dated May 22nd, 1939, announcing that that day Germany and Italy had signed in Berlin a 10-year military and political alliance. A bit of world news pinned up, no doubt, because the nuns construed it as confirmation of the coming of the peace for which they were constantly praying. Sister Luke read the current events clipping dutifully and saw no connection between it and her assignment, although the connection was there as prophetically as writing upon the wall. She was to remember it a little less than a year later, when she was to see small puffs of white dropping from the skies, which would look at first like clouds, and then, as they neared the earth, would turn into parachutes with Nazi stormtroopers dangling from the invisible cords. That's the end of chapter 16. A little sip of water. And I'll do one last one while we chat a little bit. Let's see. I want to mention that, if you are an Audrey fan, there's a new book out by Robert Mattson, who I met back here like 2 years ago when he let out his first book, Dutch Girl. But he wrote a new book about Audrey in her UNICEF years. What is the title of it now? I can't remember the title, but if you look up his name, Robert Mattson, or Dutch Girl on Amazon, you'll find the book. I don't have it yet. I want it, but it's so expensive here. Yeah, it's still like over 30 euros, which is more than I want to spend on a book right now. So I have to wait it out until there's some, half-priced used ones on Amazon. In the US it's less, and I've already seen some used copies for less than $20, I think, in the US. So you can find that and read that. You know what I ought to do? I have a wish list on Amazon, amazon.nl, of course. I ought to share my wish list somewhere, so, I can get surprise presents from people who want to buy me books. Or other things. Right now I'm reading a book on on Greek mythology. And then I have a couple other in line, other topics. One about kind of the secret history of like psychedelics in Christianity. And yeah, and other religions maybe too. Yeah, a couple people I've talked to have read that. I got it from my boyfriend. He read it before, in Dutch probably, and he thought I would enjoy it. I'm trying to catch up on all these things that, we were briefly taught in school, but not really. I want to have a good, well-rounded knowledge of history and mythology and religions and whatnot. There's so much to know, though, because there are thousands and thousands of years of human history, so I can't know it all. Until I become spiritually, an ascended master and can access all knowledge in the cloud. But that might be a while, so for now I'll just read the books. What else is new? Not much going on around here. Yeah, reading, sewing, doing more diary research. Hoping to finish up that diary and move on to the next one, and then other ones, and I need to get into a rhythm there. And the research is interesting. I'm wondering how many I can actually match up to the writer. Because I know another one I read, a short one from the 20s, this young guy. I'm just not seeing any clues as to who he was, There's some place names mentioned and that he worked at his father's store, but that one might not not find its family. What else is new? Yeah, I didn't think about this ahead of time. Again. I made a nice apple pie this week. That was good. Any questions? Anything? I did one TikTok this week. It wasn't that exciting, really. I want to do some more TikToks, but finding time to do all these things is not easy. I have some ideas. I don't know how to find good trending things. Oh, this one is. Yeah, this one is. They aren't, the real ones, they're not making me as dizzy as they were before, so that's nice. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, I want to make more TikToks, but first of all, I feel like I've been out of the loop when it comes to new music or popular music or fun music. So finding songs to use. Great. Songs, yes. And then effects, I don't know how to, he's 9. He likes the nun story. That's good. Very lucky with weather. I know. No, not addicted. This one that I'm reading, the nun story. No, this was written in the 50s by. That's great. It was written by a woman who met this nun while they were doing some volunteer work after the war in, I don't know where it was, Germany or Belgium. So she met this nun and befriended her, and they started living together for the rest of their lives. And she wrote her story using, I don't know how much of it is interesting. Well, thank you. Thank you to the kid out there watching my readings. Don't smoke. Don't start smoking. Regarding the nun story, I mean, I like watching movies, and you know, I like getting the visuals. But yeah, I kind of wish, I mean, it would be a very long movie, but I wish, like, if there was a remake, I wouldn't mind it. I would love to see more in the book, in the movie, because more happens. And you know, movies in the 1950s are they have a certain style, and the acting in them has a certain style. But I would be curious if they were to make a movie and try to be more realistic with it, even if they did it like, oh, it would be great if they actually did it using the languages. They need subtitles, but French and Flemish and Kiswahili. I think it would be very interesting. But what I like best, I guess I like the book better just because there's more detail and more things happen, and you know, it's not squished into you know, an hour and a half. So yeah, it was really interesting to read the book for the first time and just see everything that didn't make it into the movie. It's a shame. Well, it's not impossible. I mean, apparently she had like blue eyes. I don't know about her hair color, but I was thinking, oh, it'd be fun to like be in a remaking of the nun story. I mean, when she left the convent, gosh, so she, how long was she in there? Let's see, 12 years, and then like another 4 or 5 or something. So I don't, yeah, like 16 or 17 years. I think she left when she was 40 or something. So that's not impossible. I could still play 20 to 40, I guess. I do have some gray hairs, so you don't know where you. No, I am curious, like how people find my channel. Yeah, maybe you should get them the book. I don't know what else this author has written, actually. I mean, she's an author. Is it a kitty coming? Is there a kitty? Is it mine? It's mine. I don't know what her other books are. Hello there. You want to come here? Come here. Come say hi. Yeah? Come here. Don't knock it over. Oh, yes. Oh, this is Oliver. Okay. Yes. Let's see. No. Oof. Oh. Okay. Watch the microphone. No. Say hello. Just, no. You're weird. You're weird. Oh. Okay, bye. Oh, God, that's not too bad. I should see what other books she wrote. I like nonfiction books. But yeah, I'm sure she has other books, the author who wrote it. I should look into that. Video games. You know, I would like to sit and play some video games at some point, but I just don't. There's so much else to do that adding that. Like, it would be nice if I had a friend who had video games set up and I could go over and play video games once in a while. I don't drink soda. And yeah, the smoking is a Saturday thing. James Bond. So many questions. I don't know. Yeah, gosh, it's been so long since I've been in a movie theater too. Maybe. Yes, we should see what's playing and go to the movies. It's been so long. I think the last movie I saw was Downton Abbey. Or Frozen 2. Favorite cartoon. I don't know. No. You should be an interviewer. I will answer one more question, and then I am going to head inside and do some drawing. I need to finish something. But one more question, if you have one. I'll count that in with the rap thing, but no. Greatest thing I've ever done. Yeah, I don't listen to rap, but I don't know about that. Greatest thing I've ever done. I don't No. I'm pretty proud to have my picture in, a couple pictures, in this book on Audrey Hepburn that someone did a year or two ago. That was fun. I mean, not fun, but exciting to be in a book with Audrey forever now. But I mean, I didn't do that. Most exciting thing I've ever done. I went on that European road trip. Yeah, it's Always Audrey. And yeah, it's this big book with rare photos in it. Yeah, I went on a European road trip with my cat 2 years ago. Got a car and went all over. Still places to go. That was a lot of driving. A lot of driving. I don't know. You'll have to... I don't think so. I think they're mostly like posed pictures. So... Yes, he's a cute kitty. Yeah, the road trip was pretty fun. Yeah, I don't know what I would count as like the greatest thing I've ever done. I guess it depends on the categories, and then I'd still have to stop and think about it, because there's nothing I, stop and think about once in a while and think like, yes, that was the pinnacle of my life. All right. So I'm gonna head out now, and yeah, I gotta do some little sketches for something. And next week, chapter 17. I'm a lucky charm, and it never rains on me at 5 p.m. on Saturdays, so hopefully we'll keep that going. Wouldn't it be so funny if we got through the whole book and it didn't rain at all? Because it does rain around here, but I don't know. I'll have to look her up, but yeah, let's see what she does. I need to sit and prioritize some things, though, because I'm constantly adding new things to do, and I have to stop doing that. This week, we're setting up an archery target, and I'm waiting for my arm guard and quiver to arrive, and very anxious to just start shooting at a target. But yeah, I gotta stop giving myself new things to do. All right, I will see you again next week. What's up with the cat? Why is it running? Okay. Oh, maybe it's dinner time. I don't know. All right, so I'll see you next week. Thanks for coming. Talk to you later. Okay, go do that. Does he have Twitter?